Hey guys, how's it going? Gilly here from the Retro Oasis, and today we're going to do a review of the Powkiddy A20. Banggood sent this device to me to do a review, and nor Banggood or Powkiddy saw this video before I published. So the opinions you see here are my own and no one else's. So let's do it. Welcome to the Oasis. Alright, let's start with the specs. The CPU is the S905D3 with 4 cores Cortex A55 at 1.9 GHz. The GPU is the Mali G31 MP2 at 800 MHz. It's got 2 GB of RAM and 8 GB of ROM. The battery is 3000 mAh, which gives you about 3 to 5 hours of gameplay depending on the game. It's got a 3.5-inch screen with the resolution 640 by 480, with the aspect ratio 4:3. It's IPS but not OCA laminated. That means there's a little bit of gap between the screen and the glass. Oh, and it's not touchscreen. In terms of connectivity, we have HDMI out, we have Bluetooth 5.0, and we got Wi-Fi. Unfortunately, it's not dual band, so we only have 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi here. And this device runs on Android 9. It's got a front end which reminds me of Pandora's box, but you can also use the Android as we know it. The Powkiddy A20 is around the $100 mark, and I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to pick one up. Let's do a quick tour around the device. We have the analog stick here, only one, and it's not clickable unfortunately. We got the D-pad, A, B, X, Y, and 2 extra buttons here, C and D. We got home, select, and start. On the bottom, we have the memory card slot. We have the USB Type-C port, which is for charging, and you also can put peripherals here. And the mono speaker. On the left, we got the volume up and down, and the power button. Nothing on the right. Nothing on top. And here we have the L and R buttons. Micro HDMI out. P2. For the headphone jack, and the reset button here. And nothing on the back except the Powkiddy logo and some basic info here. Okay, starting with the analog stick here, it's the same one used on most of Anbernic and Powkiddy devices, as you can see here, and it's also the same one used on Nintendo Switch. So I'm not gonna go into details because like this one we know. Now the D-pad is a bit different. It's a little bigger than we're used to, and it's got some sharp edges here. To be honest, not very comfortable to use. It's got almost 24 millimeters. The RG351V got 21.7 millimeters, so around 2 millimeters less. The Retroid Pocket 2 Plus got 21.6 millimeters, so a little bit less. This is actually one of the best D-pads available right now, in my opinion. Very soft, very comfortable. And the handheld that I have with the smaller D-pad is the Powkiddy A20 with 18 millimeters. Tiny. So even though the difference, it's only 2 millimeters between those two D-pads, this one here is much more comfortable. This one here is very soft, and it's really easy to make, Hadoukens on fighting games. This one, on the other hand, I can still do the movements on fighting games, but it's just not as easy. And since it's got these sharp edges, it's just not as comfortable, and your finger starts to hurt after a little while. Definitely not the best D-pad for fighting games. And it doesn't have a lot of travel to it, and when you press it, it sticks a little bit out of the body. Now these front-facing buttons here, they're pretty standard. Again, very short travel to it, and it kind of stays in the same height of the body here when you press it. But they are very responsive nonetheless. Now the shoulder buttons here, they're also very clicky and very noisy, as you can hear. The travel here is almost non-existent, and they are also very responsive. It feels a bit weird not having other 2 buttons here, but I guess they moved to the front, C and D here. I'm just so used to with the RG351V with the extra buttons here. This is just a bit weird. So the Powkiddy A20 is very similar to the Analog Pocket, as you can see from the picture. Of course, the Analog Pocket is much more expensive and it focused on playing the original cartridges, while the A2 is a full emulation machine. The build quality here, it's pretty good considering the other Powkiddy devices. It does have this matte look and it feels a little rubbery, similar to the RGB10 Max here. But this one, with this clear orange color, it doesn't show the fingerprints as much. The A20 is a fingerprint magnet. You can see the marks all over the body and also in the back. And there's not much you can do here. Maybe try to clean a little bit with a humid cloth, but I try with my flannel, the one I use for my screen. It didn't help. So I guess I'll have to get used to it. Now let's talk about ergonomics. I personally really like those, vertical consoles. It kind of reminds me a lot of the original Game Boy. And even though those two consoles are very similar, I find it much more comfortable playing on the RG351V. I think it's because it's round body. It just fits really nicely on your hand. The A20 is okay. It fits nicely as well, but it's just, I guess the sharp edges here doesn't help much. But it's not something that would prevent me from playing. One thing I would do differently here is to put the analog here and the D-pad on top, just like the RG351V. I think most of the games we're gonna play here, we're gonna use the D-pad. So I guess the hand rests in a more natural position this way. You can reach the buttons in the back very easily. On the A20, since we're gonna be using more the D-pad, I kind of need to fold my finger like that and reach the pointing finger in the back. It's just not as natural as this one here. But again, I think this is just something that I need to get used to. The A20's got around 14 centimeters height, about 9 centimeters width, and almost 2 centimeters in depth on the body part, and 8 millimeters on the screen part. Going to size comparison, I got the A20 and the RG351V. With the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, with the Powkiddy A18S, here with the RGB10 Max, and with the RG552. Oh, let's talk about the weight. The Powkiddy A20 weighs 185 grams. In comparison, the RG351V weighs 224 grams. The new Retroid Pocket 2 Plus weighs 195 grams. The Powkiddy X18S weighs 308 grams. And the new Odin Pro, 365 grams. So 185 grams is pretty light for a console this size. So when you turn the Powkiddy A20 on for the first time, this is the interface you're gonna see. You can scroll the systems with the R button. You see PSP, Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, PlayStation, and so on. The thing is that the names of the games are all messed up. Like, for example, if you see here Assassin's Creed Bloodlines for PSP, it's called Consanguinity. And if you go down a little further, like God of War Ghosts of Sparta, it's called Spirit of Sparta. And if you go a little further, for example, Nintendo 64, Conquer Bad Fur Day, it's Bad Squirrel. It feels like they took the name of the games in Chinese, put it on Google Translate, and whatever results they got, they put inside this device. So depending on the game, it's kind of hard to find what you're looking for. And to start a game is simple as selecting the game, pressing A to start. And as you can see here, it boots pretty fast. There you go. So all the old systems, 8, 16, 32 bits, we won't have any issues emulating it. And since most of the systems have the 4:3 aspect ratio, it's perfect for this kind of screen. Now, systems with a different aspect ratio of this display, you will have to play in full screen, like the GBA and the Game Boy Color here. Inside the game, you can press the home button and there's a pop-up menu here. So you can resume, you can exit the game, you can go in game settings, and you can save and load your game. And if you go to game settings here, there's not much you can do. You can change the slot of your save, game speed disable. There's nothing you can actually try adding FPS or even change the screen ratio. So you will be a little limited due to the settings you have here. PS1 will play just fine here. Nintendo 64 plays pretty good, but you run into some slowdowns in games like GoldenEye and Conquer Bad Fur Day. PSP depends of the game. Considering that you can't change any of the settings here in this system, God of War Ghost of Sparta is actually playing pretty well. I do think it's using frame skip though. So basically this is it. You can actually pick up this device, buy with a memory card full of games, and you can start playing right away if you don't mind about the name of the games. Another thing you can do here is press the home button and then go into enter game market. And this is kind of a shady app store, gaming store. And you can download the games based on the system. So you choose one, and then the games are here, and then you press A again and it starts downloading. And when it's done, you can go over here, completed, and you can see the games you downloaded. I actually downloaded twice Castlevania for the NES, I did it by mistake. So the games are here. Now to use these games, you need to go back and then go to enter game settings and then external games management. The thing is, they're supposed to be here. Once you download the games, they're supposed to be here, and then you should just press X and then add them to your gaming list. But that doesn't happen for some reason, at least not in my device. So when you go back to the NES system, the Famicom system, see, the game is not here. Only the ones they have like numbered. Another thing you can do is to put your games inside the memory card. You need to go to games and then download and then put the games on their respective folders, like Sega Genesis to Sega Genesis and so on. And since we have the memory card in the computer, I created a folder called APKs inside the root of the memory card. So I'm gonna copy all these apps here and put inside that folder. This way we can install some of them on the Android side of the A20 and run standalone emulators and not use the Powkiddy box if we don't want to. Back into the A20, we run into the same problem we did before. The games I transfer to the memory card in their correct folder, they don't show up here. I've seen several videos, I checked different Discords, and I got the same answer. The games need to be in the download folder, and then you need to go to external games management and then add them with the X button. But that just doesn't work for me. I don't know if this is an issue with my specific device, but it's not working. Now let's try installing some APKs. To do that, you just need to press the home button, and then you can go down here and enter Android apps list. And then I know and continue. And that's it. As you can see here, you have the Android Now interface as we know it. What I recommend you to do to make things a little easier is to use an OTG adapter like this one to USB type A, and then you can just connect a mouse, for example, connect on a USB type C port here, and then this mouse here, since the A20 doesn't have a touch screen, it will help you a lot to do the setup. And the APKs for the standalone emulators, it's a box of surprises. Some of them will install just fine, just like the Redream, for example. Others, like the DuckStation, I got a message there was a problem parsing the package. And even messages like the one from the PPSSPP app not installed. So yeah, some of them will work, some won't. And I know this is an ARM-based Android, so you have to install ARM applications on it, but some of them, they just won't work. And even though RetroArch works just fine, like the buttons are all over the place. A is my start button, my select button is jump. So, and even though I try to mapping the buttons, it just won't work. For some reason, I can't save the configuration. And I don't know, I think it might be my Unity. I think there's something wrong with it. The same thing with Nintendo 64. I can't use the buttons and I can't map them. So I'd say on the Android side, the experience is broken. There's no way you can play like that, at least on my device. Okay, I'm gonna start with the things I like and then the things I don't like with this handheld. The form factor. I love vertical handhelds. They do remind me a lot of the original Game Boy, and I think it's very nostalgic. The front-facing buttons here. I know a lot of people is gonna give me grief for that, but I kind of like them. I know they're very clicky and all, but they have like a very low travel distance. And they're very responsive. I think it fits this console very well. The lack of options inside the Powkiddy box. This is something that can be positive and negative at the same time. It's just that sometimes you have like a few minutes to spare to play, and you end up doing more configuration than actually playing. And the lack of options here makes it easier for you just sit and play. And that's the last thing I like in this console. The fact that you can just pick up and play. It already has games on it. And even though the names are all messed up and it's gonna take a little while for you to find the games you wanna play, it is something that you can just take out of the box and play right away. Okay, now let's go to the things that I don't like it. The interface. I think the Powkiddy box is definitely not the best choice for this handheld. The menus are buggy and slow. You don't have lots of configuration options and everything is very confusing. In some menus you press the D to go back. In another menu you press Y. What's with that? It's not an intuitive experience. The material they used in this handheld. This rubber coating they put on the device. I think it's okay on the RGB 10 Max, it's a light color and the fingerprint doesn't show as much. But it's a nightmare on this black color. The lack of options in the Powkiddy box is also a negative. I mean, you can say I'm contradicting myself, but I do think it can be a good thing and also a bad thing. A good thing when you just want to pick up and play. A bad thing because it's missing some just basic features, like to show the FPS on a game, or just change the aspect ratio of a system. This is very basic and in my opinion it should be included in every handheld. The Android 9 experience is terrible, at least in my device. Nothing works the way it's supposed to work. Button mapping is a nightmare, and installation of APKs is all over the place. Again, I think it might be something with my device specifically, but this is the device that I'm reviewing right now, so this is the experience that I'm having. The extra 2 buttons in the front. It's an interesting idea to have these 2 extra buttons here, but I'd much rather have the 4 shoulder buttons in the back, and the lack of touchscreen. The 3.5-inch screen is not the best screen to have touch capabilities due to its size, but it's much easier to navigate on Android. Just have a look at the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. So in the end, it's difficult to recommend the Powkiddy A20, even if it's got some good things going for it. I do like the vertical form factor and the front-facing buttons here, but the buggy software and the older version of Android makes everything much more complicated. For around the same price range, you can get the RG351V, for example. It does have less power with the RK3326, but you got an R3 button here. The same 3.5 screen, but this one is OCA laminated and it's got fantastic colors. You got traditional shoulder buttons here, and it is much more comfortable to hold. Another option would be the RGB10 Max. It's got 2 analog sticks and they have L3 and R3 function, a bigger and better screen, and the rubber coating here doesn't leave as many fingerprints as the black one. Another one worth considering is the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. It's the same price, actually a little bit cheaper. It's got 2 analog sticks, but they're not clickable, a much better and comfortable D-pad. Same size, 3.5-inch display, but this one is touchscreen, and it has a newer, better version of Android, and it comes with Google Play installed. So if you're interested in the Powkiddy A20, I left the purchase link in the description of this video. And buy through this link, you don't pay anything extra and you'll help directly with our content. And if you think this video was useful to you in any way, don't forget to leave a like before you go and consider subscribing for more videos like this one. Once again, Gilly here from the Retro Oasis. Thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.